Hello everyone. In this video, I'll be giving my thoughts on Chosen. Seeing as I've used them in all my Chaos Space Marine games, I feel like it's time to talk about the one unit that I tend to use a lot of. Hope you guys enjoy. Now overall, with my thoughts and experiences, and just the overall experience of using Chosen, in terms of their appearance, they are basically slightly fancier Legionnaires, from everything I can tell. And granted, that's entirely dependent on how do you want to make your Legionnaires look, how do you want to assemble them. But the core idea, just in terms of their appearance, they're slightly more fancy Legionnaires. With regards to using them and how I've used them, in all of my Chaos Space Marine games, doesn't matter how big how large they were, like what the point allotment was, I always ran with Chosen. At first, it was one unit of 10. Then I've originally pivoted to 3 units, which is what I've normally been using, and that is 2 5-man units of Chosen and 1 10-man Chosen unit with Fabius Bile leading them, and they get ferried around in a Land Raider or a Rhino, but I've since pivoted back to using a Land Raider over the Rhino. Now, in terms of the data sheet, and in what I feel as though, how they feel, right? Like how they tend to operate in tabletop, their melee is pretty solid. Given that they all come standard equipped with the cursed weapons, which in my previous video talking about power weapons, they're power swords, right? They're strength 5, AP -2, damage 1 weapons, overall pretty solid. It's a pretty generally good, melee profile. And then of course you can give them, pair to curse weapons, you can give them power fists, give them a little bit more wiggle room in terms of melee. And then their shooting is a little bit whatever, with their standard issue being bolt guns. You can give, I believe, up to 3 of them combi weapons. You can give, I think, one. You can give 1 or 2 of them plasma pistols. Overall, their shooting, it's not terrible, but it's more incidental. You're more often than not going to want to get them stuck into melee because that's where their more heavy hitting weapons are. And and to that point, I do think that they are kind of like Sternguard veterans are to intercessors, where they're a slightly more optimized version of the Legionnaire, right? And obviously you pay for that in the points, right? You're paying 30 more or 35 more points than Legionnaires to field Chosen, and they also have one more wound. They don't have any involds. They're still toughness 4. They still only have 6 inches of movement, and they have 1 less OC. So there's a trade-off with the Chosen, but overall they're a bit more streamlined and mobile and lethal versions of Legionnaires. Now, off to my criticisms. One of the big criticisms, if not the main criticism I have with Chosen, is I do wish that they had more war gear options. I wish they had access to some more special weapons, whether that be melta guns, heavy bolters, plasma guns. Basically, I wish that you could kit them out, where their shooting wasn't only between bolt gun, and a combi weapon. And then for melee weapons, it'd be kind of neat if you could give them demon hammers, right? Give them their power fist equivalent, but just now it has dev wounds, so you could really have a moment of just Chosen really hitting hard into something in melee. And as I said towards the end of last slide, where Chosen are slightly more optimized Legionnaires, well, that is a criticism to have, is that they are the Sword Brethren / Sternguard veteran equivalents for Chaos Space Marines. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, and I'm by no means saying that is a bad thing, but it's something to point out. It's something to acknowledge, and it is a criticism you can hold with them. And I think that comparing it to Space Marines at least have more wiggle room in the sense of there's more infantry units that you can pick from that do either very similar things to each other or do different things than each other. Whereas in the case of Chosen and Legionnaires, there are 2 units that do not the same thing, but if you're playing Legionnaires more melee oriented and you're playing Chosen with the intent of getting them stuck into combat, or moving from unit to unit attacking things, well, you're going to start finding yourself with the situation of, well, I'm using Legionnaires for melee and I'm using Chosen for melee. These are 2 units that are doing fairly similar things, but just how they're going about it is a little different. And then next point of criticism, and this is less of a criticism of Chosen, maybe a bit more of a criticism of like Chaos Space Marine characters when leading things, and that is Chosen can be used to ferry. They can be used to ferry other characters around without needing to go into a transport. So an example that comes to my mind is, taking Abaddon, attaching him to 5 Chosen. Don't stick them into a transport, and then you can just kind of run them around the board because the Chosen give shoot and charge in a turn that you advanced or fell back. So it makes a character like Abaddon, who normally is 5 inches of movement, be very mobile. Stick it with a Chaos Lord and or Master of Executions. You have a little murder wagon of guys just running around trying to assassinate characters. Not a bad thing. Like him. What I said about them being more optimized Legionnaires, in my opinion, this isn't inherently bad, right? This is by no means saying that Chosen are bad because they are just this or that. No, but it is one gripe. And I partly do think that is because a lot of Chaos Space Marine data sheets, from what I've experienced, from my own personal experience and from what I've noticed when reading through them, do kind of blend into, they take different approaches, either very different or slightly different approaches to accomplishing a goal. Right. By no means is this a bad thing. By no means am I saying that they are bad because of this. It is just an acknowledgement of, hey, this is something that kind of irks me with Chosen. I think that all in all, they make up for it. In most, if not all, the games I've played, CSM, Chosen have always managed to get their points back and then some. Some cases they don't. That's just kind of what ends up happening. You make bad dice rolls. But with that, guys, thank you all for watching. Feel free to comment down below what your thoughts are of the Chosen. Whether you're someone who plays CSM and you've had certain experiences with them. Let me know in the comments what kind of experiences have those been running them. If you play against Chaos Space Marines in your local meta or your friend group, what kind of experiences have you had trying to deal with them? Have you had any hard times punching into them because they just have been unnaturally tough for you? Is it a matter of they hit too hard for your liking with their power weapons or their power fists? Feel free to let me know down in the comment section below. Like always, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more content like this in the future. Liking and subscribing also does go a long way to help show interests. Same thing goes with sharing. But with that, guys, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you agree, cool. If you disagree, well, is what it is. We're all humans. We have our own different opinions. But I hope you guys are having a great time wherever you may find yourself. And if not, hope things turn around and go better. But until the next time, guys, I'll see you next time. Peace.